This is my Orbea Orca and it weighs just 6.3 kilograms. Now in this video I'm going to tell you some of the modifications that I've done to help it achieve that low weight, but I'm also going to tell you about some other mods I make to hill climb bikes to optimise them, because it's not all about saving weight. Oh, and this one has probably my favourite finish I've ever had on one, but it's this mainly bare carbon with the copper logos and just the minimum amount of paint and lacquer, which actually does save a significant amount of weight. So if you are wanting to save weight, this is the kind of finish to go for. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Chainset. So I've got a Dura-Ace Chainset on there. It's what the bike came with. And normally that is a brilliant chainset. You know, World Championships and Tour de France are won with that chainset. But for a hill climb, you can go much lighter. So Dura-Ace chainsets, typically about 690 grams, with a power meter that can go up to over 700 grams, like 720 grams. But there are a lot of lighter options out there. So rotor chainsets are a bit lighter. FSA ones can be lighter too, if you go for their carbon crank arm options. And there are some emerging Chinese brands that are becoming very popular as well, such as Seabray and also Ellie Lee, both of which will save you in the region of 300 grams off a Shimano Dura-Ace chainset, which is blooming loads. I mean, that would get this bike down to 6 kilos. So I'll see. If I can get one of those, I might try and fit one of those. But one of the things I'm also going to do is change the gearing, because you don't need a big outer chainring for the National, and you can save a lot of weight by going one by. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. Now, in terms of optimizing the gearing, this is the key area where it isn't just all about weight, and it is also about reducing friction and making it more efficient. Now, one by will save a lot of weight, and this is a little bit tricky to do because I've been struggling to find a one by single chainring for the front that is the size that I want. You can work out the size that you need based upon gear calculators. These are freely available online. Type it in. You can work out the cadence you're going to want to do, and for a given gear ratio that you have and the speed that you intend to travel at. And then you can work out what ratios are going to suit you. Now, based on that, I can get away with the 36 ring that's on there. Maybe this one's a 40 on here, so I might try that as well. But I'm struggling to find a narrow wide. Now, you'd want to use a narrow wide because that gives you better chain retention. In the absence of a front derailleur, you don't want to drop your chain. However, I have run non-narrow wide rings in the past, and it's been okay. And I think initially what I'm going to do is try and do that. Now, I'm going to set this up with just the inner chain ring on the inner position. That's key because it alters your chain line if you put it on the outside. And the gears that I want to be optimal in terms of chain line are the inner ones. So I'm going to be on the little ring and then on the top half of the cassette. So that's what we're going to sort of optimize for. Although to do that, I'm going to experiment trying to fit it with some shorter chainring bolts in the absence of the outer ring. Now, hopefully that will work. What I'm going to do is actually take this out for a ride after I've fixed it tonight on the hills of Bath, and I will see if it works and if I'm able to keep my chain and I'm not having issues with chain retention and chain drop. If I do have issues, we will write the issues on screen now in a caption after we've filmed this. So yeah, you'll find out. An update on the chainring. I've just gone out and done some training on the bike and done some hard efforts similar to the hill climb efforts at full power up some local climbs, and no issues at all. No drop chains, absolutely fine. If I was, for everyday riding, I wouldn't want to run this setup, but for just hill climbs, I'm confident with that. I think it's all right. So yeah. Something else I worked out when I was optimizing my gearing choices was the cassette is bigger than what I need. So I've got an 1134 cassette on there. I use that all the time. But by switching to an 1130 cassette, which should be fine, I can save 30 grams. And well, that feels like quite a lot compared to some of the other modifications I'm going to tell you about. As I take this wheel out, it gives me a good opportunity to show you one of my other weight-saving modifications, which is the through axles. Now, these are titanium front and rear, and they save about 50 grams overall, which is actually quite a lot. I've also got ceramic bearings throughout the bike, which feels absolutely beautiful and super smooth. And also, just check this out. So the next thing is how I'm optimizing the chain. Now, of course, I'm waxing it. You knew that already. But what you might not know is there's a few other things you can do that go even a few steps further than that to make it even better. So the first thing is the type of wax I'm going to be using, which is the standard Silka Super Secret wax blend, but I've put a speed chip in it. But I've not just put one speed chip in, I've put two. So the speed chip has additives in there that make it even more low friction and even faster. The downside is that wax treatment doesn't last as long on your chain, and you'll typically in dry conditions get 8 hours runtime out of a chain with that treatment. However, if you put an additional speed wax tablet in there, you reduce that runtime even further, but you do make your chain even faster. So I've done double speed chip. Of course, this hill climb is only going to be like 3 minutes long. I'm also going to have to warm up and I'm going to have to run the chain in, but that will be fine within the runtime. So that is perfect for this, but also would apply to, even slightly longer hill climbs than this. If you were trying to optimize your chain for Alpe d'Huez, this would be the optimal way to do it. But that's not all. There is another little interesting detail with chain optimization, and that is to not use a brand new chain and then just wax it. The reason for this, and it's something I learned fairly recently from engineers at Ceramic Speed, and that is that the chain itself actually self-polishes and becomes faster as the metal links articulate against each other. And so once a chain has been used for several hours, it actually becomes faster. So this chain, I've previously stripped it and waxed it and been using it, and now I'm re-waxing it ahead of the National Hill Climb. And that, once it's been run in, which will take around 15 to 30 minutes, it will be then in its optimum state. Just give this chain one last slosh. So just get the wax incorporated into it, and I've reduced it to the correct temperature, 75 degrees, to withdraw it so that the wax is viscous enough that it coats the chain nicely. Now, something else with the chain is I am running the correct length chain. Now that might sound pretty obvious. However, within hill climbing, a modification that some people do is actually shorten the chain and run a short chain. The thinking being that it saves a little bit of weight, which it does, running a few less links. And also, if you're running a one-by situation, like I'm going to experiment with, having that extra bit of chain tension can help the chain stay on the front ring without a chain catcher or without a front derailleur. However, this is not great because, again, from speaking to the Ceramic Speed engineers, I know that doing that actually increases your drivetrain friction at an alarming amount. You're talking several watts lost just through the added friction by having a chain which is too tight. So I'm not going to do that. But like, again, I said earlier, when I experiment, we'll see if I retain my chain. Now, the next mod is absolutely brilliant, and I can't take credit for this, as I've got these from Alex Payton. Now, in the UK hill climb races, you have to run lights front and rear. It's the rules, okay? So there's no actual specific rules beyond that about the lights in terms of how bright they have to be or anything. And so these are my lights that I'm going to be running. Now, Alex found these online, and this thing is ridiculously tiny. It weighs like a gram, and there you go. It's a light, it works, and it only has to work for 3 minutes. So that's my light and I'm sticking to it. Now the thing is how do I mount this? So what I'm gonna do is I've got one of these front, I've got another one to go on the rear that's red. I'm gonna mount them with a bit of epoxy resin and just bond it to the front there. So that's what we're gonna do. Apparently this epoxy resin glues in 5 minutes. So I've got to put one on the rear as well, and the rear stipulates you've got to have a red light. So Alex got these ones from China online that are, when you turn it on, it's red, but then it turns green, and then it turns blue. For sake. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use one of the white ones on the front, the same as what's on the front, and I'm gonna have to get a little bit of red plastic and glue it and stick it over so that it appears to be like a red light. That'll work, and I'll just bond this on the back here onto like the seat post or something. Be right as rain, that'll be fine. Bit of chemistry nerd stuff for you, right? Epoxy resin, it's actually a cool bit of organic chemistry. It's a polymerization reaction between an epoxide, pre-polymer, and a nucleophile, usually an amine. So other things with the cockpit are, well, I'm using the Wahoo Bolt because it's the smallest, lightest Wahoo, naturally, but I still want to record my data and my power and my ride, and actually quite useful for pacing as well. The other thing is I'm running no bar tape because it saves weight, and definitely for a 3-minute effort, I don't need bar tape. You just have to be a bit careful though, that you're not knocking your handlebars on the top tube, as the bar tape does actually offer a fair bit of protection and cushioning from that happening, and well, yeah, you don't want to damage your top tube. One thing you could do if you did want to have a bit of bar tape is use this stuff. So the guys at Fairwheel switched me onto this. They use it on their lightweight builds, and it was on the crazy light hill climb bike that they did for us. So it's this Tessa tape, and I actually used this on my previous Orbea when we were at Alpe d'Huez. So wrapped the bars in this, and it only adds about 20 grams, but yeah, in this instance, I'm not going to use it. But yeah, this is a good cheap alternative and a cheap option if you want really lightweight bar tape on your bike. So I'm going to talk about tyres and wheels now. Now, the wheels I've got in here are these beautiful Princeton Altas, which have ceramic bearings in the DT 180 hubs. They're really light. They're just under 1,200 grams a pair, and there are lighter wheels out there. I'm aware of this. You can get wheels that are less than 1 kilo a set, which is ridiculous. However, these are the lightest wheels that I've got, and they're also really, really stiff. And I actually have a theory about wheels that are really, really light, because first up, it's often difficult to get something that is still really stiff when you're really hammering it out of the saddle for 2 to 3 minutes. Stiffness is key, but also, in my experience of riding very light wheels, I have a theory that they might not actually be the fastest. And that's all to do with the inertia. And I find that there's a sort of sweet spot, it feels like this anyway, around this sort of point. Now, this is something that I'm going to have to test in a future GCNTech video. And it's something I've spoken about with Si, and he thinks there's something in it as well. It feels, because a wheel can be so light that it doesn't hold any inertia, it doesn't have a sufficient flywheel effect. It's something that I experienced on the crazy light bike that I rode this year. It felt very jerky, like every pedal revolution was sort of surging you forward a bit, but not holding that nice fluid momentum. So yeah, I'm going to investigate that, but these are the wheels I'm going for. The other key thing with them is tyre choice. Now, you can save a lot of weight by going to a tube type specific clincher tyre rather than a dedicated tubeless tyre. These are the Pirelli P0 RS tubeless type tyre, and I'm going to be using those. The reason being is that although they are heavier than the tube type tyre, I've fairly recently been shared some information from Pirelli, and they've actually done a load of rolling resistance testing on the two types of tyre. And this one, although it is slightly heavier, is slightly faster in terms of rolling resistance. And that's because the tubeless tyre has a different construction with something that Pirelli calls its speed core construction. It's a more modern construction technique for a tyre. And so consequently, it has lower rolling resistance. So much so that when I've calculated that for the paces that I'm going to be going at, it actually comes out at being, slightly faster on paper for this type tyre. Also, with their updated Smart Tube TPU tubes, you can make it lighter as well. So using the fastest TPU tubes that they do, you can actually save a little bit of weight over a tubeless system. So at the moment, these are set up tubeless. I'm going to switch that out to the lightest TPU tubes because you lose a tiny sort of half a watt of rolling resistance, but you save quite a bit of weight. So that's a modification I'm going to do, although I'm not going to do that in here right now because it's going to be quite messy. So something else to do with the tyres is the width. So these are currently 28s. I'm going to swap them out for 26s. The reason being is 26 is a little bit lighter, and the road surface of this particular hill climb now is pretty good. It's pretty smooth tarmac. Not going to need a 28, 26 should be fine. And also optimise that tyre pressure. So use the Silca tyre pressure calculator is my sort of go-to, but I do actually tweak the tyre pressure a bit different from what it suggests in the pressure calculator for hill climbs. The reason being is that the way you are sat on the bike on a hill climb, I'm not seated for a 3-minute effort. I'm going to be out the saddle the whole way. And so I've got a lot more weight on my front wheel. And if you have your pressure quite low, I feel that you're potentially getting hysteresis losses, and as the tyre deforms under your weight, you're sort of pumping on the handlebars, and it's causing the tyre to just squidge and have those losses. So I actually prefer to have a bit more pressure in the front tyre, and that is something that I know that other hill climbers, like champion hill climbers, I know, like Dan Evans and Andrew Feather, they do that for that exact reason. So, some quick fire lightweight things. Pedals, Shimano Dura-Ace, a little bit heavier than Speedplay Nanos, but the system weight is lower because the combined weight of the pedal and the cleat is less, so we're going for that. Other thing is the saddle, Selle Italia SLR Techno, which is the carbon one, very light, and saves about 30 grams over the normal padded one. I'm not going to be sat on it. And the front brake caliper mount is titanium as well, which saves about 10 grams. That's come from Oleg at Twisted Wheels. Thanks, mate. And yeah, saves a bit more. I mean, I could run a 140 rotor at the front instead of a 160, but I can't be bothered. I mean, even I've got limits. This is ridiculous. I could take the shifter hoods off as well and save a bit of weight, but no, I want to, that's where I'm gripping the bars. I want that shifter hood on there as a bit of padding, a bit of comfort. So yeah, I mean, you can go absolutely crazy if you want to, but yeah. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the bike is now down to 6.2 kilos. So if I do swap the chain set out for something lighter, 5.9. So there you go, a bunch of modifications that I've done. I absolutely love optimizing bikes for all sorts of things, but especially hill climbs. I just think like it's loads of fun thinking about it, how you can make your bike lighter. But I hope you've got some useful ideas from this and some useful bits of information. And if there's other things that you'd recommend that I haven't thought of, or things that I could quite easily do, let me know in the comments section, and also let me know which you think is the most ridiculous lightweight modification that I've made. I'm going to go now, but make sure you check out the hill climb videos that we're doing and, well, how we get on at the National Hill Climb Championships very soon on the channel. Love you. Bye.